Hello and welcome viewers, I am Pia and you're watching NewsX World special coverage of the SCO summit in Tianjin. Yes, the 2025 Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit is underway. Leaders from across 24 countries have gathered, and in the latest developments, the highly anticipated bilateral between India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping has begun. The meeting carries added weight amid global trade tensions driven by Washington's tariffs and recent strains in India-US ties. Modi is in Tianjin for the summit, which runs through the 1st of September. His visit comes soon after Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's trip to India, where both sides agreed on measures for a more stable relationship, including restoring direct flights, finalizing an updated air services agreement, and easing visa rules as well. This marks Modi's first visit to China since 2018, while Xi last visited India in 2019. He was in Mahabalipuram back then. Ties have long been strained by the Ladakh standoff. They have improved with disengagement completed in the last friction points in Demchok and Depsang back in October 2024. Meanwhile, we're also learning that Russian President Vladimir Putin has asserted that Moscow and Beijing remain united in strengthening BRICS, opposing what he called the discriminatory sanctions that hinder global development. Meanwhile, even as the statement from Putin is coming forward, the main point of discussion that everyone is training their eyes towards is the bilateral meeting that is taking place between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Xi Jinping. These are live shots, I believe, that are coming in currently from Tianjin. And speaking of Tianjin, let's head across there. My colleague and senior executive editor Megha Sharma is with us on the broadcast, bringing exclusive insights from the summit. Megha, the much anticipated India-China bilateral is underway, and I want to understand from you, what exactly are the big ticket items on cards as far as the continued process of normalization of ties is concerned?
Right, as it's already been mentioned several times before, 7 years in the making for Prime Minister Narendra Modi to return to China to be part of the SCO summit taking place right now over here in Tianjin. The last time around the Prime Minister was in China was when he visited Wuhan back in 2018 at the invitation of Premier Xi Jinping. Amidst the developments, the fast-paced developments that have happened in the course of the last few months has completely changed the trajectory of India-China relationship, and in fact it has just fast-forwarded the normalization of ties between both the countries. It had already started happening last year, Pia, when this was on the sidelines of the Kazan BRICS summit that had taken place in October 2024, when both Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi Jinping met each other on the sidelines. This meeting coincided with the de-escalation of the PLA troops that happened along the line of actual control in Ladakh, and India deeply appreciated this effort and further pushed for the demilitarization and de-escalation of certain friction points along the line of actual control. There have been continuous talks that have happened at the special representatives level, at the work coordination, military level, as well as at now the Prime Minister to Prime Minister level. So this is obviously going to be, one of the big ticket agenda items that Prime Minister Narendra Modi will have when he has that conversation with President Xi Jinping. The number two biggest point of convergence for both the leaders is going to be the headache that has been the US trade tariffs that have been imposed on India and the threats that have been issued by the US administration to impose up to 240% tariffs on China. Now, looking at China and its ambitions to become the next global power, superseding United States of America, obviously is reflective in the SCO summit that is currently underway. There are as many as 24 nations, 10 of the members of the SCO, and then there are observer nations and international organizations as well as dialogue partners who are participating in this summit. So on one end, China China does want to showcase itself as an alternative superpower that helps build the multipolarity within the sphere of within the sphere of geopolitics, within the sphere of trade, within the sphere of economic and bilateral relations. And at the same time, it does require India's cooperation, because India is one of the fastest growing, biggest economies of the world. It is the fourth largest economy of the world. It is one of the biggest powers over here that dictates the terms in Asia, if not the only one. Therefore, a support that has been shown from India by way of Prime Minister Narendra Modi accepting this invite and attending it and holding that bilateral is going to go a long way in China wanting to build itself as a superpower that has the power to compete against United States of America, and that's exactly what this is, a show of strength that China has been able to, by way of bringing in countries together, bringing in supportive nations together, whether it is from the Middle East. You see Saudi Arabia and UAE and Qatar and Kuwait, they all are going to be present over here. And then you take a look at ASEAN, where Cambodia and Vietnam are also dialogue partners. You take a look at Central Asia, which are within 4 important countries that are part of the SCO member grouping. You also have now Azerbaijan, and Russia already was part of the SCO, and then you also have the inclusion of Belarus. And then you also see that, September 3rd parade that is going to take place, the Victory Day parade that takes place in Beijing. We'll also see the inclusion, participation of the head of state of Serbia, the head of state of Slovakia. Now, these two countries are also very supportive of Russia in the Ukraine-Russia war that has been going on for over 3 years now. So we clearly see this, two bipolar groups that have emerged in this world. One that is aligned to NATO, United States of America leading the charge, and the other one clearly seems to be an effort by Xi Jinping to emerge himself and his country as a power to be reckoned with, as a force to be reckoned with. And a lot of countries, including Turkey, and like I said, in the Middle Eastern region, in the East European region, Southeast Asia, Central Asia, countries that are rallying support, and even in the Indian subcontinent, including India, that now seem to be rallying in support of China against what has become the common enemy for all these countries, which is United States of America. So I think all these points are going to be reflected in the conversations that both leaders have.
Absolutely, Megha. As you aptly put it, if we consider a bird's eye view, there is a geopolitical power play, an economic power play that is in focus over here. But speaking at the bilateral level as well, Wang Yi was here in India and New Delhi just a while back. We've seen a lot improve in terms of the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra resuming as well. There are talks of renewing direct flights between India and China. And speaking of trade, since that's something you've highlighted particularly, China is India's second largest trading partner, and China is looking at access into Indian markets, something that we had curbed back in 2020 after the Galwan clashes had taken place. India, on the other hand, is looking at access to rare materials. We're looking at border trade renewing through the Lipu Lake in Uttarakhand, Shipkila in Himachal, Nathula in Sikkim as well. Are these points of conversation that are also likely to crop up?
Right, absolutely. When it comes to bilateral relations, improvement in bilateral relations between both countries, it has to start from people-to-people connect. It has to start from cultural connect, and therefore it was indicative when the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra resumed after 5 long years. It was indicative of the thawing of the strained relations between both countries. Since then, there is also an eagerly anticipated announcement from both countries about the resumption of direct flights between India and China. Not just that, there are already nods that have been given by each of the governments to allow for more of their nationals traveling to the respective countries, to the corresponding countries, and visas being provided to them with ease, which is another example of the growing normalcy that we are seeing in the ties between India and China. So whether we talk about trade, we talk about people-to-people connect. Of course, India and China have this civilizational connect with each other that goes back for centuries, is something that is a binding factor for both the countries. Barring the friction points that India and China have, of course, faced ever since the 1947 partition that took place, and of course the much talked about 1962 war that India lost against China. But like I said, these are friction points that both the countries have to bide their time and keep aside till the time the more emergent, immediate issue is resolved, which in the case of India and China is a common irritant right now, which is the United States of America and the tariffs that are being imposed. China definitely does not want to bow down to the United States of America, and India is in no mood to take orders from President Trump on who to trade with and who not to trade with, who to build alliances with and who not to build alliances with. And therefore, these common areas of interest and common areas of convergence allow for both countries to work together very cohesively. And that's exactly what we see that's happening right now.
All right, Megha, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast, sharing all those perspectives. I believe we have an audio source on the ground as well.
2.8 बिलियन लोगों के हित जुड़े हुए हैं। इससे पूरी मानवता के कल्याण का मार्ग भी प्रशस्त होगा। परस्पर विश्वास, सम्मान और संवेदनशीलता के आधार पर हम अपने संबंधों को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध हैं। एथेंस चीन द्वारा SCO की सफल अध्यक्षता के लिए मैं आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। एक बार फिर चीन यात्रा के निमंत्रण के लिए और आज की हमारी बैठक के लिए आपका हार्दिक धन्यवाद।
Of course, viewers, you've heard the statement by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He was speaking to the President of China, Xi Jinping. He has congratulated Xi Jinping for hosting this successful SCO summit. He has stated that cooperation between India and China is necessary in order to improve the condition of humanity at large, because India and China cumulatively are home to 2.8 billion people. That's not all. He stated that now India and China are witnessing an environment of stability as far as bilateral ties are concerned. The Kailash Mansarovar Yatra has resumed. There is a relationship of trust, respect and resilience as well. This is something that the Indian Prime Minister has highlighted in his opening remarks to President Xi Jinping. He has further stated that both countries have agreed to border management and that direct flights will also be resuming very, very soon. That, of course, is the latest that we're bringing from Tianjin. Meanwhile, we're being joined by a slew of experts. We have with us Major General Rajan Kochar. He is a senior strategic and defense expert joining us from New Delhi. We also have with us Dr. Satoru Nagao, fellow at the Hudson Institute in Tokyo, and Professor Rohan Gunaratna, international affairs expert, joining us from Singapore. I'd like to go across to Major General Kochar first. We've just heard what the Indian Prime Minister has said. This is, of course, a meeting at which the eyes of the world are trained towards, because we've seen ties between India and the United States of America fluctuate over the recent months. US has slapped steep 50% tariffs against India as well. So do you think we're witnessing a realignment, and can we really trust China at the border?
Thank you very much for inviting me for this discussion. A very, very important question actually you've raised is the trust. And trust would be apparent in case China moves ahead on the border management issues. A border stability protocol is required to be worked out between the two countries. A special representative mechanism is already existing. 23 meetings have taken place. WMCC is also meeting. So what I feel is that in case this trust has to be regained, because you see, this trust has been lost because what China did in Galwan and what China has done in eastern Ladakh was against all the treaties which have been signed between India and China, and especially the 1996, the confidence building treaty, Article 1, which says that no country will attack each other. So China has done to the contrary. So I feel that the first and foremost, in case this relationship has to go ahead, that trust has to be regained and the talk has to be walked. So, and if I actually say that is, I'm reminded of that famous scholar Sun Tzu. He actually said that every chaos gives you number of opportunities. So right now, tariff is a chaos, and because of that, uh, Xi Jinping is sensing an opportunity now to come closer to India because he knows that this is the right moment to strike because China is very, very subtle in its policies. And I feel that this is a great occasion for both the countries to actually get together. It is going to be a win-win situation. And why I actually say that is because China is looking for a market now because after all, China has also been imposed a large amount of tariffs from the United States. And therefore, China sees India as a great opportunity to do business. Already there is a trade deficit of $100 billion. Or the part of India would like to see some kind of reciprocity as far as trade is concerned in especially IT, pharmaceuticals, and the agriculture sector, because our textiles and gems and jewelry have been badly impacted by trade and tariffs with Russia. So we would like to gain some ground with China. So I would like to see this, and especially China coming forward because China is a huge manufacturing hub. China has got surplus actually to give, and China is looking for markets. And how China will react to the Indian proposal will substantiate whether we can trust China. Does China really want to do trade with India? Does China really want to help India, especially when Trump has imposed 50% tariffs? And my last point is about the border management. I would like to see a disengagement, a de-escalation, and de-induction happening in a phased manner. And I think this is the biggest challenge India has, and especially Depsang and Demchok, because these are the areas China has established a number of villages there. There is a habitat there, and China has enacted three new border laws. Now, the big question here is, will China de-engage from here, disengage from here? Especially after habitat has been established by China, its own people are, staying there, and how far back, China will go. That is the next question. And the third is what kind of joint mechanism we would like to have for patrolling these areas, for joint patrolling of these areas. And there is also a talk of building up a standard operating procedure for the UAV management and the winter deployment, because the winter is approaching now. Do we see a disengagement of troops happening on the line of actual control during the winters? Because this is an aspect which has been raised in the meetings with China recently. So all these issues, I think, are very, very complicated. They're not so simple as we discuss here. But the intent, I would like to see the intent of the Chinese, because unless the intent is shown by the Chinese, mere words are not going to happen. We need concrete measures for China to understand the concerns of India. And if China is willing to do that, then I am confident that we would move ahead.
Absolutely, and I'd like to take forward some of the points that you've made, Major General Kochhar, with Professor Gunaratna, who's joining us from Singapore. Thank you for taking our time, joining us on NewsX World Live. Major General Kochhar has pointed to the fact that India should proceed with caution as far as dealing with China is concerned, because there are certain issues, particularly with regards to the border, that have not been entirely resolved. China continues to occupy Aksai Chin. It continues to make claims over Arunachal Pradesh. It went so far in order to, in fact, rename certain places, a number of places within Arunachal Pradesh. In particular, we've seen increased military buildup take place as well. So how do we balance our economic concerns and the gains that India would make economically, along with the very real military buildup threat that's taking place along the border?
Yeah, what we are witnessing is that the Xi Jinping's meeting with Narendra Modi is going to focus on the positives. That is what India and China can do together to restore the relationship. It will certainly, their officials will address those border issues and other issues that has created a rift between India and China since 1962 border war. But for more than 2,500 years, India and China has been friends, and this very short period of discord, both the leaders want to move beyond that. Wang Yi's visit, the foreign minister of China's visit to India in many ways, and of course the meeting with Ajit Doval and with the Indian foreign minister, they've decided to work on what can strengthen the relationship at this point, because India and China, if they can work together, there will be tremendous stability in the Asian space. The second point is that these border issues will be addressed, but it will take a long time, and some of those issues may never be addressed. The final point I want to share with you is that the SCO is the world's largest regional organization, but today all focus, including Western powers, are focusing on the relationship between India and China, as Modi and Xi Jinping will meet, so that there will be a complete realignment of India. And President Putin has played a very important role in bringing these two countries together. So this summit will be a historic summit, because this summit will be the foundation for the creation of a multipolar world. And we will witness very significant geopolitical and economic changes in the coming months and coming years.
I'd also like to rope in Dr. Naga, who's waiting rather patiently with us. Since you're in Tokyo, I'd like a perspective from a Japanese lens in particular towards this meeting that has taken place. You know, Indian Prime Minister has just wrapped up a visit from Japan, a rather successful visit. A number of MOUs were inked. $68 billion of investment was announced from Japanese companies in India itself. India and Japan have enjoyed very close ties as well. We cooperate very closely as far as the Quad is concerned, something that these countries have reaffirmed, especially to counter China's aggression in the Indo-Pacific. So how does Japan in particular view this realignment? Is Japan really concerned at what's happening?
Yes, of course. Prime Minister Modi's schedule indicates that Prime Minister Modi do not trust China, because he visits Japan before he visits China. And he will not join the military parade against Japan just after the SCO. So that's why Prime Minister Modi's message is very clear. Even if he will talk with Xi Jinping in China, he does not trust Xi Jinping. This year, because of China is president, China holds various type of the anti-Japan movement. Because the SCO is one of the example. Of course, he will gather many countries' leader, but connected with military parade they are organizing, and which military parade which celebrate the their fiction the victory against Japan. So that's and they make many movies. The brutal Japan, the bullying China, and the Chinese hero defeat Japan, something like that. It looks like the Chinese version Hollywood movie. They made many and published it. This year is 18th anniversary, and China want to express this situation is the year against Japan, which indirect message to the United States. China is a great power, and we defeat Japan, and next enemy is you, United States. So U.S. should concede. And in World War II, the U.S. was friends. So if U.S. remember, China is not the enemy of you. But if you are the enemy, like Japan, we will defeat you. Something like that is China, the message China want to send. So that's why view from the Prime Minister Modi, why India need to join such kind of fiction-based China's dream. So Prime Minister Modi visit Japan first, before China, and before the China organized military parade against Japan, he will return to India. So that is clear. As a business-like relation between India and China has happened, of course, but the real background of the trust, India do not trust China. That is clear message.
All right, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Nagao. I'd also like to thank Major General Rajan Kochar. I request Professor Gunaratna to stay on with us. There's another crucial development we're tracking. Brazil has now proposed an extraordinary BRICS summit to coordinate a response to trade challenges caused by US tariff policies. Brazilian President Luiz Lula da Silva has stated that modern multipolarity is incompatible with unilateral actions. He has in fact noted that negotiating without a collective position is like a worker without a union trying to negotiate with the boss. This comes as Russian President Vladimir Putin has asserted that Moscow and Beijing remain united in strengthening BRICS, opposing what he called discriminatory sanctions that hinder global development. Earlier, remember, Trump had imposed a 50% tariff on Brazil. India, another member of BRICS, also faces 50% tariffs. Russia, China, India are all in Tianjin for the SCO summit, as now leaders from these countries are hinting at strengthening the BRICS. Still with us on the broadcast is Professor Rohan Gunaratna, international affairs expert from Singapore. So, over the years, the relevance of BRICS has often been questioned, even though it's more of an economic collaborative union. There have been friction points between India and China that have led to critics coming out and stating that BRICS is not really as relevant now. With Trump's tariffs coming into play, are we seeing this organization's relevance now burgeoning again?
BRICS is rising, BRICS will be strong, SCO will be strong. So we are seeing that these two institutions will pose a threat to some of the Western institutions that have Western-led institutions that have been built. Certainly the move by the Brazilian leaders will mobilize support, especially China, Russia, India, all these countries will work together. So that is why I said that The world is going to change very fast. The geopolitical and the economic changes, we are going to see the making of a truly a multipolar world.
Quick follow-up to that, speaking of multipolarity, we've recently seen France, that is a NATO ally of the United States of America, make a very interesting statement. Just a short while back, French President Emmanuel Macron had dialed Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. They'd spoken in detail about bilateral ties, but India's BRICS presidency in 2026 also cropped up, and France had pledged support for this. How do you view this?
Europe itself is divided on certain issues to do with the United States. France will work very closely with India. In fact, one of India's biggest defense partners is France. And what we are going to see is that the French relationship with India will grow, although the Delhi's relationship with Washington, D.C. will come into a phase of risk. So we are seeing that the European partners of India, they will not abandon India. They will work with India amidst this crisis between India and the United States.
Right, Professor Gunaratna, thank you so much for taking out time, sharing your perspective with us on NewsX World as we track these very crucial developments from Tianjin, where my colleague Megha Sharma is bringing exclusive insights. Due to paucity of time, we must wrap up this bulletin here. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World.